Morning, everybody. We're at the second product training, screen porches. It's going to be stick-built, pre-built screen panels. Mike Eastman and June Gonzalez are going to be the instructors on it. Again, the reason the training is important is to cut down on frustration for you guys for installation, set the expectation to our customers to provide a uniform product every time, and also so we're all doing everything the same way, we can help evolve and improve as a company.
I'm Mike Eastman. I work in the office helping with operations, field measuring jobs.
I'm June Gonzalez. I'm an installer, been here with the company for 12 years, so we just kind of put this together so we can kind of all build it, I guess, one way and now 3 different ways, and just do it the right way.
We're going to be doing 2 types of trainings. We're going to be doing a training on a stick-built screen porch, and we're going to be doing training on pre-built screen porches. Pre-built porches, they're an effective way of getting multiple jobs done in one day. We have the ability to streamline them, mass produce them in the shop, as opposed to going out and custom framing it, where you got to cut every specific piece. We're going to start off with stick framing installation. First thing we're going to do, just like every job, is we need to get the work order out. We need to read the work order and all of it. There's a copy in the papers that you have this morning of the screen work order for stick built. If everybody can turn to that, we'll be able to follow along together. Okay, on the work order, there's different sections on the work order that take care of different aspects of the porch. On the right side, about mid-paper, you have the different colors. You have whether it's chair rail, screen rail. There's a spot in there that denotes the height of it. There's also a box that it's checked that tells you if it is a pre-built or if it is a stick-built porch. There's the box in the middle of the page tells you the different types, different length materials that you should have packaged for you. Everything should be pre-cut. If it's not, it should be labeled for you, the installer, to take with them. You need to compare the materials to what the actual porch has on it. On the second page, there's an actual top view layout of what materials are going to be used at what spot. It does not show It does not show an elevation view. Everything is going to be one standard way unless it's noted. If it is changed, it will reflect that on the drawing. The second page also is where you'll find your screen rail. If you need to take screen rail, they'll be on that page. And again, you need to make sure when you're loading the truck you have all materials accounted for. All screen rail, you need to make sure you load extra stuff just in case of an error. We don't need to be riding back and forth just for one slip of the saw. I mean, simple things do happen. If we can have a piece to back us up while we're at the job site, we'll be more effective. Okay, when we're loading the materials, we also want to go through and we want to check our doors, make sure they're not damaged. If you guys can look over there, at the top of that door, it has a dent in it. It's just little things like that you need to look for. That door needs to be pulled out, set aside. Basically, the installer should be like the second line of defense. When the shop pulls everything together, they should be inspecting it. The more eyes we get on one particular thing, the less chances we have of something wrong being installed. Okay. Once you have everything prepped and everything, you head to the job site. First thing you need to do is inspect the job site. Go ahead and get a walk around. See what height ladders you're going to need, locate the power source, figure out any issues that you might have. You need to actually pull a tape measure and check your layouts, make sure everything is matching up. Don't wait till you get to the end of the job to figure out that the screen rail is short. You need to start laying out all your tools. Get your ladder set in place, get your saws set up. Your material staged out on sawhorses, screen rail loaded onto the deck. First step that we're going to talk about is installing the corner post.
When installing the corner post, the first thing you want to do is set your ladder up, get your 4-foot level, and check the header. When checking the header, you got to check all 3 sides, because sometimes you might have one that's a little off one way and have the other one off the other way, so you kind of want to split the difference and get it looking. Just try it, like you don't want to level one side, and then look at the front be an inch off. So just kind of split the difference. Once you do that, you want to, if it's a coil stock header, right? If it's a coil stock header, you want to come in a 1/4 inch from the outside on both sides. From the outside, 1/4 inch in, 1/4 inch in. So you take your top casting. I think there's a bag on each table. You take your casting. This is your top casting with no ears. You set it up there, and you get a drill. It's easier to pre-drill these. Once you got your 1/4 inch mark, you hold it up there. Just pre-drill it, and then we're going to use 2 inches. 2-inch screws, and then fasten it on there. Get your one side done, and then get your other side done. Once you do that, you're going to take your bottom casting, which is the one with 2 ears, put it on the bottom, set your tape measure on top of the casting, and on the bottom of the casting on the top, and then get your measurement. Once you do that, you set your first post, you level it, but don't fasten it down yet. And then you go to the other side, repeat the same steps, cut the poles, install it, put it on there. Once you have them both leveled, then you go ahead and fasten them down. The reason that, because if you set one post and you fasten it down, and you go to the other one, you have to jack it up a little bit, you're going to throw that one post out of level if you jack one side up. So make sure both of them are set, leveled, and then you can fasten them down. Once that's done, we're going to use a text. You got text in these bags? Oh, okay. Is there one in each table? No. All right. I'll pass this around. We're putting a text on one side where the 1x2 is going to cover for uplift. There's nothing. If a wind comes in here and there's nothing holding the header down to the porch. So you're going to put a text on the top and put a tack on the bottom, and that's going to prevent it from uplift on each post.
There's 2 tacks on this post that we're going to be sending around. One tack is to show you where not to put it, and the other one is to show you where to put it. The brackets have like a 45-degree angle on each of them on the corners, so if you don't move that tack over towards the center more, you will not hit the casting. Once you have all your corner posts set, we're going to begin with installing the vertical uprights. This is mainly going to be at your house walls. Unless if it's an in-swing porch, there will be additional uprights needed at the corners, on the inside corners. Once you're ready to start setting your vertical uprights, you're going to lay it out by cutting it to length, and then you're going to pre-drill 4 holes through the 1x2 or 2x2, evenly spaced. If you use a 2x2, you're going to have to either use foam. If you use a 2x2, you more than likely will have to use foam. There's a new way that we're going to be doing the foam. We're going to be notching, or we're going to be relief cutting every single lap in the siding. That way the foam is allowed to go back instead of being pinched. It'll go back tight to the wall. Whenever we're installing screen porches, we need to have 1-inch embedment of the screw into the wood. So if we're going into a coma board header, we need to use 3-inch screws. If we're going into a piece of coma at the wall, we need to use 3-inch screws. If we're going to a coil header, we can get away with 2-inch screws. When it starts coming into siding and running screws through the siding, we're going to get into 4-inch screws. Lay out your 1x2, you're going to drill 4 equal spaces. We can come up 3 from the bottom, mark 3 inches and then 30, and then come down 3 and 30. If that center gap is over 30 inches, we need to add an additional screw in the center. The max spacing that we will have our screws apart is 30 inches. Once you have your vertical upright set in line with where they need to be mounted at with the corner 3x3, you need to proceed to snap chalk lines across the bottom from 3x3 to vertical at the house wall. We're going to, after all the verticals are up, we're going to get into building the actual wall itself. You're going to cut your 1x2 on the top. We're doing a screen rail right now. If you're going to cut your 1x2 to fit in the top, you're going to lay out your vertical 3x2 if it has it. If you look on page 2 of your layout, you will see that on the side wall there's a 3x2 in the center of it. You're going to use a 3x2 punch block. You're going to mark center, and you're going to lay that out. You're going to pre-drill that with a 13/64 drill bit. That'll provide your fastening connection point. Allow you to frame screw the top 1x2 down into the 3x2. You're also going to equally space out your screws across the top 1x2. Make everything look symmetrical. Again, we're not going to be going over 30 inches between screws, and we're also going to have 1 inch of embedment into the wood. Once we have the top 1x2 cut, we're then going to stick it on the ground up as if it were going on the bottom, and we're going to measure the height for the center 3x2. The 3x2s and 1x2s, they're all in the bag. Whenever we call out an extrusion, say for example we call a 3x2, the first number in that material is the side that the spline groove is on. For example, a 3x2, the spline groove is on the 3-inch side, as to where a 2x3, the spline groove will be on the 2-inch side. We have minimized our stock on how much 2x3 we're using, pretty much making everything a standard using 3x2s. So once you measure the 3x2 to the header to the top of the 1x2, when we're doing screen rail, we need to use an external 1-inch receiver. It's going to be cut 2 7/8 wide. When you get the measurement, tight measurement, we need to deduct 3/8 of an inch from that measurement, and that's what we need to cut our 3x2. What that does is it allows us to, when we quick set our receiver down into the ground, room to slide over top of the heads of the screws without being interfered with. If you're going to be doing chair rail, you need to repeat the process for the top with the bottom. You need to cut the top 1x2 and the bottom 1x2 to fit. Once you do that, you need to get a vertical measurement to fit your 3x2 tightly in between there. It has to be tight to where we do not have gaps underneath of the 3x2 at the front edge. What you can do is you can again set your 1x2 upside down, measure tight from the header to the 1x2, get that measurement, cut it on the saw. You can bring the 3x2 over, stick it up in the header, and see if it slides in properly to the 1x2. If it's long, you need to just trace it and cut that off plus 1 inch. If it's short, you need to measure how short it is and deduct that from an inch. If it's a 1/16 of an inch short, you need to cut 15/16 additional off of that 3x2. What that does is that allows you to get it in between the 1-inch top and the 1-inch bottom. Once you have everything cut and laid out, you're going to frame screw it internally with 1.5" stainless steel square head frame screws. We have our walls frame screwed together, tops and bottoms cut to length. Everything's pre-drilled, keeping in mind that we're not going over 30 inches. We're going to then install the wall. For the chair rail, we're going to just bring it in from the outside, slide it in place, keeping everything in line across the header, keeping your reveal good. Then we're going to again use the screw that has 1 inch embedment. If it's trim coil, we're using 2 inches. If it's combing board, we're going to be using 3 inches. Once we have the top secured, we're going to bring the bottom in, line everything up with our chalk lines. Once everything's in line with our chalk lines, we're going to screw it down. There's going to be 3 different ways, I believe, to screw it down. You're going to have screwing it down into deck boards. You need to lay out, when you originally lay out your 1x2, you need to take into consideration if it has deck boards or not, if it has bricks. If it has deck boards, you need to make sure the screw placement misses the joint and the gap in between the deck boards. If there's brick, you need to make sure you do not hit into the mortar. You need to hit into a solid surface. If it's concrete, you can just lay it out evenly like the top. And if it's on a membrane roof that needs to be waterproofed, or a deck that needs to be waterproofed, we need to use internal chair rail brackets. So, you're going to use an internal chair rail bracket when we're mounting the bottom to a waterproof decking. We're going to use a Sikaflex caulk, and we're going to waterproof around the screws. We're going to set this down in line, keeping it in the center of the 1x2. It goes right in the bottom. It may need to be bent in slightly. We're going to pre-drill it, and then we're going to caulk around the screws, clearing all the debris away. The caulk needs to be color matched to the color of the deck. There's different colors. We have white and tan, and there's also a gray. That would be your 3 main colors that you would use. Again, we need to have 1 inch embedment into that screw.
Once you got these brackets fastened down and they're caulked, you want to get your screen rail and set it in front of the opening. I'm mounting the screen, right? You're going to set it in front of the opening. Once you set it in front of the opening, what you want to do is the rails are long. They're not cut to fit, so they're going to be about 3 inches long. So what you want to do is you want to split the difference on both sides so you have equal spacings on each side. So you just place it right in front of the opening, split the difference. If you got to measure it, take a pencil, mark it. When you do on the sides, on a concrete pad, there's slope. So you got to remember, if you set the rail on there, the rail's not going to be level. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that when you set it up against this corner post is level. So once you get your mark on the bottom, you want to pull your tape and do the same thing on the top. And then once you have your bottom mark, you want to just, whatever you have on the bottom, you want to match the top. So basically, if you just set it on there and you mark, your rail's going to be out of level. So you want to make sure that's level and you have the same reveal on up against the 3x2 and the post. Once you have that done, you're going to, when you set it in place, you're going to have to pick it up over the chair rail bracket, set it on there, and tap it down. Once you have it down, you're going to get a framing square, a speed square, set it underneath of the rail, set it underneath of the rail, so you can have, it's going to be about an 1/8 inch gap, and that's what you want all the way around, on the sides, front, and everything, to keep it the same. Once you set your speed square on there, you're going to take a tack, and you're going to put a tack on the front, and you're going to put a tack on the back, wherever you got the chair rail brackets. What we've been doing is, on the front wall, like if you would put 3 screws on there, you want to put 3 brackets on there. So wherever you have a bracket, you want to put a tack on the front and on the back. Once you have that done, you're going to take the same internal chair rail, and it's going to go inside the rail on each side. So you place that on there. Once you place it on there, before you fasten it, you want to make sure you center it on the rail. Because what happens if you go too close to one side, when you go to snap the top cap, it's going to snap in, but your rail's not going to be flush to the outside. So center it inside the screen rail. Once you have that done, go ahead and put 2 stainless steel tacks in here, non-painted, is what you want to do on each side. Once you have that done, you want to take your self-mating top cap, which goes on top, which you have one leg longer than the other. Once you have that done, you're going to cut it to fit the screen rail. Once you do that and you know it fits, you got to make sure, it's very important, that once you set it on place, you have the one leg inside this channel and the other one inside the other channel. Sometimes what happens is you'll put it in there without checking, you're snapping it in there. If you get one leg snapped, you won't get it out. You have to cut it and start all over again. So once you have both of them in place and you know everything is where it's supposed to be at, take your rubber hammer and tap the ends. Start on one end and just work your way back. Once you got that snapped, it'll pretty much lock in there and it's a done deal. It won't come out. If you need to take it out for some reason, pretty much you have to cut it and then take it out. Once you have that done, you want to take a tack, a stainless steel white tack, and put one on the top and put one on the bottom on each side.
Not going too far from the edge. We only have 1 inch on this internal bracket that we have to hit into. If you come 1.25 inches away, you're not going to grab into that. You're not going to have any structural integrity in that rail at all. You need to keep it centered on the top of the self-mating and approximately 1/2 inch to 3/4 inches away from the post. That's the steps for doing screen rail. If we're doing external, if we're doing chair rail, it's going to be a different process. The chair rail is when you have your top 1x2 and your bottom 1x2 screwed outside of with the 3x2 in the center. You're going to use what then we call an external chair rail bracket. The external chair rail bracket stays physically seen the entire time. These mount same purposes. Whatever height that the chair rail is on the work order, that's the height that we need to set the top of this bracket at. We're going to pick a side of the porch. We're going to measure up 36 inches. We're going to put a mark. We're going to then move over to the other side of the front, on the front of the porch. We're going to measure up 36 inches. We're going to put a mark. We're going to snap a chalk line all the way across there, and that's going to be the mark for the top of our brackets. The brackets go on the side of the vertical, and you need to make sure that they do not overhang the inside of the room, and you do not want them to overhang the outside. You want to center them. They should be cut shy. You want to center them on the 3x2. For the 3x3, you want to keep everything to the outside without sticking out. On the side walls, you're going to square around with your mark, your 36-inch mark. Then you're going to pull a measurement from the top of the header down. Whatever that measurement is, you need to mark that measurement at the house wall. Once you measure down from the header, put your mark, you're going to then snap a chalk line on the side walls. That allows you to keep the same distance in that top opening to where your deck's going to have the slope to it. So the bottom of the chair rail will reflect the reveal change, but everything in the big gaps will be equal. Once you have these mounted, you're going to use Tex if you're mounting them to aluminum. If you're mounting them to wood, you need to have 1 inch embedment with your screw also. Then you're going to cut a 2x2 to fit in between bracket to bracket. You can't measure ahead of time for post openings because once you put the bracket on there, you lose about 1/8 of an inch. The 2x2, once cut to fit, it slides in over top of the screws. You may need to flex out the 3x2, the post, etc. Once it slides in, you're going to again have that 1 inch to put a fastener into. The fastener needs to go top and bottom at all locations. Once you have that, once you have all your chair rail fastened and all your 2x2s installed, the porch is pretty much done except for the door. So at this point, we're going to go into setting the door. if you look at your work order, that'll tell you, on the layout will tell you if it's an in-swing door or an out-swing door. And it'll also show you which side to hinge to. Once you determine your hinge side and your swing, there's going to be two different types of handles. If you have an in-swing door, it requires one type of handle. If you have an out-swing door, it requires another. An in-swing door now requires a threshold to be installed in every one regardless. If it's an in-swing door, it gets a threshold. The first step is going to be cutting the threshold to fit in between your verticals. Get that cut to fit, and then you're going to set the Z-bar that should be pre-cut on top of the threshold. Once you set the Z-bar on top of the threshold, you're then going to get your door and you're going to install the hinges on it on the correct side. Whatever side the door is swinging to is which side you want the barrel of the hinge to be on. If it's swinging in, you want it on the inside. The screen on the door needs to match the position, the placement of the screen on the porch. If the porch is being screened to the inside, the screen on the door needs to be to the inside. If it's on the outside, it needs to stay on the outside. Once you have all the fasteners installed, or all the hinges installed on the door, you're then going to set the door keeping a 3/16 inch reveal around the perimeter of the door. Keeping in mind that everything should look symmetrical. If you're missing this, like if you have an 1/8 inch gap on the hinge side, you then want to make it an 1/8 inch gap all the way around the door. Once the door is hung, you're going to then proceed to screwing your Z-bar down around the perimeter of the door, keeping that same reveal, that 3/16 inch gap. On the closer side, you're going to measure up 24 inches and put a screw, and come down 24 inches and put a screw from the top. You're then going to repeat that process on the inside until the Z-bar is completely screwed off. Then you're going to proceed to install your handle on the door. You're going to measure 40 inches up from the bottom of the door, and you're going to come in 4 lines from the outside of the door. The lines are very small. You can't really see them from across the room, but if you get up close to the door, you will be able to see them. Again, that's 40 inches from the bottom and come in 4 lines. You're going to put a mark. Then you're going to use a little set tool that they have in the boxes. It allows you for a layout. Not all of them actually have the plastic shim. They also have like a piece of paper for the layout. That 40-inch mark is for the top, the center of the top hole. And you're going to mark it on the inside center of the top hole. You're then going to drill out the holes with a 5/16 drill bit. Drill the outside first and then drill the inside. Do not try to push the drill bit through the door. It will not line up properly. Once you have the holes drilled, you're then going to install whichever type of handle you need to install. In this case, we're going to be installing an in-swing handle. Once the handle is installed, then you need to move into setting the closer. The closer goes to the opposite side of which way the door is swinging. You need to use, there's a special bracket to put on the hinge side that holds it to the post. If you're mounting it to a wood column, you need to have that 1-inch embedment. Everything should be getting mounted to aluminum, so we're pretty much going to be just using Tex. When it comes to mounting the bracket to the door, we're going to be using 3 Tex in the bracket instead of 2. Once the closer is installed, then we're going to put the bug sweep on the door, keeping it tight to the saddle threshold to avoid any gaps for bugs. The saddle threshold allows us to have a better clearance when the door swings in, because a lot of times the decks are sloping and we're putting these doors on the front wall and then they're running into where we hit the deck and the door doesn't open properly, or we have to raise the bug sweep on the front of the door and it does not get a proper seal. Once we have the sweep installed, then we need to cut our top 2x2 to give us a header. Once we cut that 2x2 to fit, we're going to come up with the inside of the door frame and we're going to put 2 screws inside and out. and that's going to screw off the top of the door. At this point, everything should be done with the door, and this will take us to wiping down and cleaning up the porches. Everything needs to be wiped down and touched up. Any excessive paint loss off the screws we need to touch up. Any pencil marks need to be cleaned off. Any chalk line needs to be have an attempt to blow it off. Everybody is using blue chalk. Blue chalk will clear off, red chalk will not. Once we have everything wiped down and cleaned up, it's then time to start screening.
Once you're ready to screen, you should by now determine, if it's 8-foot head or 9-foot head, and you got a screen to go with whatever height the header is. You want to measure your front wall. Let's say your front wall is 12 foot. You want to cut your piece 12 foot 6. We want to allow 3 inches on each side for when you cut. You want to cut straight as possible when you cut, because once you start screening, it's going to make it a lot easier to keep your lines on the screen straight. The screen we use is 1814. So the holes are a little bit different. So when you screen, you don't want to put one panel one way and then put the other one the other way, because you'll see it on the holes. They won't line up. You'll keep everything the same. But you want to cut it 6 inches longer and try and cut it straight. Once you have it cut and you go up there, you want to hold it 3 inches past, and you want to hold it up there, flush with the top of the 1x2, and take your spline. You want to take your spline. You got a round side and a flat side. You want to take it and you want to insert it down towards the panel. So if you're starting on your top, you want to take your spline and wedge it going down, and then take your roller and just proceed to roll the screen in. You want to do the top, then you want to do your sides. Once you do your sides, you want to go ahead and do the bottom. Once you have all the outside perimeters done, then you want to go ahead and everything is tight and no bubbles. But before you do that, go ahead and do your center piece, whether it's chair rail or screen rail. Once you have everything screened and all the spline in, you want to check for bubbles to make sure there's no bubbles or nothing. If you see a couple, you can just pretty much pull the screen and then re-roll it again. Once everything is good and no bubbles and everything is right, just take your knife, fold the screen over towards the screen, and just, carefully just trim all the excess screen off all the way around. And once you get that done, just proceed to the next walls and do the same thing. And at that point, once you get done, you just kind of want to walk around and look around and just make sure everything is right with the screen, the aluminum, with everything. At this point, the screen porch is pretty much complete.
Just walk around your whole porch, like you said, make sure you got all debris cleaned up, all your screws picked up, all your screen and trash thrown away properly. That's your stick-built screen porch.
This one you have to get notched on the inside with Mike and pass that around so that it'll fit over the casket. So once you notch it, once that's notched, then that 1x2 is going to be flush up against the structural post. Once you get that done, you're going to go ahead and throw your hose out. You got to keep in mind, if the door is swinging in, you want to put your screws on the outside. If the door is swinging out, you want to put the doors on the inside, the screws on the inside. Keep in mind, you don't want to go past 76 inches on the screws on one side. Because the top screw is going to be on the center, and then the rest is going to be off to one side. If you look at your Z-bar's got one side that's kind of pumped out, and that's going to hide the screws, so it's not enough. Once you have that installed, then you're going to go ahead and measure for your 1x2 from from here to your corner post. Once you get that cut, you're going to measure 36 and an eighth. 36 and an eighth and put a mark. You got a punch box somewhere? We got a punch box. All it is a piece of 3x2 with 4 drywall screws in it to kind of just do a little punch box. So once you measure 36 and 36 and a quarter, you want to go ahead and lay your punch box on there and just take the hammer and just go ahead and hit it. That's going to leave 4 marks. You want to go ahead with a 13/64 drill bit, go ahead and drill those 4 holes out. Once you do that, then you're going to come with 3 inches, 3 inches, 3, 3, and then center, and drill all those holes out. Once you do that, you take the 1x2 and set it down, and put your tape on top of there, and measure up, and cut it a little bit long. So let's say, for example, if this was 102 to the bottom of the header, I'll make it 102 and a half. So I'll go to the saw, cut it, I'll bring it over here, hold it up to the header. It's going to stick past this 1x2. So you're going to take the pencil, you're going to scribe it, take it to the saw, and cut an additional inch past that mark. What that's going to do is that's going to allow the 1 inch 1x2 on the top and the 1x2 on the bottom. So once you got that done, you frame screw this top to this 3x2 to the 1x2. The next step you want to do is you want to measure 36 and a quarter from here out. Once you put a mark, because you're going to have a chalk line there. So once you put your mark there, you want to cut a 1x2 from the 3x3 to the mark. Once you do that, you cut it. You're going to take the punch box, put it on one end, do the same thing. Drill it out, drill your holes out, and frame screw it together. Once you have it all together, it should be like a eye pretty much, almost. But you're going to set your top in first, and you're going to slide the bottom in. Once you got it in place, you want to go ahead and line the top 1x2, keeping the same feel on the header all the way across. Once you have your top mark, once you have it all installed, you slide this in. You're going to have another notch on this 1x2 because of the casting. And the notches are different. This notch on this 1x2 is different from this one.
This is
and I can show you right there.
The one that's going on the ground is a little bit longer. The one that's going vertical is a little bit, yeah. One that is sitting on the ground, it comes over farther than the one that's going vertical. Basically, you have a notch for your vertical. And you have, requires a little bit more in order to get this bottom channel to go faster.
So once you have this in place, you got your chalk line, you line it up against the chalk line, and you go ahead and drill your screws out and fasten that down. That pretty much, once you do that, your front wall is pretty much going to be, well, from here on this way, it's going to be installed framing block. Then you want to get a 1x2 and just put a 1x2 on the other side from one side to the other. Just measure and cut, and come to 3, 3, and 7. We have this. Then you're going to take, once that's done, you're going to be ready to install the screen rail. You're going to take the screen rail, like we said earlier, you're going to set it in front, and this is the reveal you want to keep the same, which on this wall, you don't have to worry about, the depth being out of level. So you're going to set it on front, you're going to split the difference, you take your pencil, describe it on top and bottom, take it to the saw, and go ahead and cut it. Once you cut it, bring it back over here, and if it fits, you can take your top snap and set it on top of here. You can cut it the same size as this. Here's one that's already.
Keep in mind that with this gap, it needs to be centered side to side. This one here is not. On your self-mating, there are spline grooves inside and outside. Where this wall here gets screened to the inside. So what you need to do is you need to look at your bottom 1x2. There's only a spline groove on one side. That needs to face the inside. A lot of people just look at the top and get confused. There's only one way that these rails work.
Once you have it cut to fit, you set it on there. You go ahead and pull your hose out on the bottom. You want to go on the outside. If you can't, if the spacing is too small, like this one is right here, then just go to the next one. But whatever you do on one, you want to do on the other one. Just keep it the same. So once you get that done, you go ahead and drill it, put your fastener down there.
When installing the fasteners in the concrete quick sets, you need to use a regular drill and it needs to be put on speed 1. Using an impact drill does not work for quick sets or frame screw. You need to have a firm grip on the drill, that way there it doesn't get out of control and it'll ream the head off of the screw. Control it going down until it's tight but not over tight. You do not want to crush that bottom 1x2.
Once you got that done, now you want to take your internal churro brackets, and you want to make sure that you have your top leg and bottom leg, top and bottom. You don't want to put it like that, because then when you put the tacks, you're not going to hit nothing. So make sure you put it like that.
Then you need to center the rail on the 3x2. And you need to center the bracket inside of the self-mating. You need to put 2 screws in it. There will be 4 holes in the brackets, but we need to put 2 screws on the bottom side of it, not angling them to where they pull the rail down. We need to put them in straightly. I always favor the drill to the high side of the self-mating because that gets hidden. If the drill rubs against it and scratches it, you won't see it after it's complete. And then repeat the process for the other side.
Once you get that done, before you put your top snap on, double check the inside. You don't want to leave no screws in here and put something on here, because what's going to happen is you're going to get that rattling on there. So make sure there's nothing in here before you fasten your top snap on. So one leg's longer to the other, just make sure you put it opposite.
If it is tight to get in there, what you can do is you can actually use your shoulder or whatever to space it out to get it in there. Then let the pressure come back and make sure everything's lining up. Make sure that the legs are inside of each other so they snap properly. You don't want it to come inside and miss it. We'll have to cut it off. Once everything's lined up and good to go, and you've checked the inside, you cleared all your screws out or debris, you're going to very easily tap it with the rubber side of your mallet get it to start to snap down. Once it snaps down, just go ahead and check it one more time, make sure it's snapped right, and then go ahead and proceed to snap it the rest of the way. Being careful not to hit it too hard and dead it. Once that piece is on there, it will not come off unless you use a saw. Then it requires a new piece to replace it.
Once that's done, then you want to go ahead and take your tacks and put a tack on the bottom and put them on the top and the bottom on each side. You don't want to come back. You don't want to come back too far, because what happens if you go too far out, you miss that bracket. When you screw it in, the screw's going to turn in towards the post, and it's going to be hard to get out. So make sure that you're like about ½ inch out from the 1x2 when you put these on. You want to get one on the top and one on the bottom. And that pretty much completes this one right here. That's pretty much framing up a screen wall, a screen rail. Now we're going to do the one with chair rail.
What you're going to do is, one person's going to get up on the ladder and he's going to holler down your top measurement. Then you're going to proceed to cut that length. In this case, we do have everything pre-done. It tells me the measurement. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find the center and I'm going to put a mark in the center. Then I'm going to use my 3x2 punch block. Once I put a mark in the center, I'm going to come 1.5 inches to one side or the other and then place an X on the right side. That way there we know that we do not set the punch block on the wrong side of the line that we marked. The punch block has some like drywall screws inside of it, and they're just barely longer. There's a little tip sticking down, and when we set it on there on the mark, we can hit it with a mallet and put a little dimple in there as a guide for our drill bit to drill it out. Once you have everything drilled out and you have your line or your holes the same distance from the ends, you're going to then repeat the distance or repeat the step for the bottom. Keep in mind that when this is your top piece here and your bottom piece, they go opposite. I mean, they're not both facing the same way. You need to mark everything for your center post off of the level post. The house wall could be at a level, so in this case we're going to pull everything from the corner. So when we have everything sitting down on the table, our spline grooves are opposite of each other. That way there we can pull a measurement from the same side, put a mark, do the punch block the same exact way as we did for the top. Once you have the top cut, you can set it down on the ground and then proceed to get a measurement. Show them how to do the measurement.
What I'll do is I'll set the top one down.
Making sure that it's flat to the surface.
And like I have 103/4, but I want to make it a ½ inch bigger. So 101 1/4.
What we'll do is we'll cut it 101 1/4. Bring it over here. Put it in place. Push down on this, and then we'll put a pencil mark across the bottom. Over there we have the proper distance. Once we have that pencil mark on the bottom, we're going to then cut an additional inch off from that pencil mark. And what that does is allows the 3x2 to go in between the top and bottom. Which then we're going to proceed to frame screw and everything off. we're going to use a regular drill. We're not going to use the impactor. The impactor will strip the heads off. This allows you to have better control of it. On the inside of the 3x2 extrusion, there's screw bosses in there. Allow us to the screw to bite into. And when we punch out, that's what we're actually marking on the 1x2. Just the whole placement for that. You need to make sure that when you lay this down in the concrete, you have something underneath of it. You don't want it rubbing up and down. A lot of times what happens is you hang it off the side of the deck and screw it on the ground. Or if you set it up against a ladder, make sure there's something protecting it. The backside of this will get scratched up if it's rubbing. When you go to screw it, you pull it one way or another, it puts scratches in it. Make sure your spline grooves line up with each other, the smooth side, and then there's the side that has grooves. Same thing on the 1x2 extrusion. Using an 1.5" stainless steel frame strip. Keeping the backside flush where they're opposite of the spline groove. Make sure that it's tight, make sure it's free of debris. If you're screwing it on the ground, you don't want grass getting pinched in there. And then repeat the process for the top. Making sure that everything's staying lined up, spline grooves. Everything lined up on the flat side. Now we have a complete wall, and that gives you the shape of an eye. And then when you have a screen rail, it's going to be in the shape of a T. This piece is going to be a little bit longer, and it goes into an internal parallel bracket. As you can see over here, it's cut a little bit short to allow it to slide over top of the receiver that we have mounted to the ground. Once we mount it, slide it into the receiver, we then need to put 4 tacks, 2 on the inside, 2 on the outside, and that secures this post.
Once you got this put together, you want to put the top 1x2 on first. And then once you have it on there, just slide the bottom in.
When you're laying it out, that's when you need to make sure that you cut the notch for the 1x2 to slide over the corner casting.
Once you have it in place, you want to start with one corner, put it flush to the 3x3. That's your first screw. Go to the other side. Put it flush with the 2x2. Once you get that done, you go to the middle and just make sure you have the same reveal all the way across before you put that middle one. Once you have that middle one on, all the other ones should line up. You can just go ahead and finish putting screws up there. Once you have the top done, same thing with the bottom. You want to line your corners up first. Then you want to drill it out and go ahead and fasten it. Now this one's getting the chair out. So
and repeat the whole process for all holes.
yeah. Now we said earlier you want to transfer your mark. Let's just say this is the bracket that your 36-inch mark you put in the front. You just want to take your space square and just kind of transfer the mark over. Then you have your one mark right there. You want to measure up to your header, 65 3/8. Then you want to come back here, transfer your mark, and do the same thing, 65 3/8. Once you do that, you want to take the choke line, and snap the chalk line. Once you snap your chalk line, just take a pencil mark and transfer the mark over on the sides. And your brackets are going to go underneath of those marks.
Then we're going to use 3/4 inch tacks. We're going to hold the top of the bracket flush with that mark. And we're going to keep it flush to the outside without sticking fast. We're going to then put 2 tacks in the middle of the bracket. Make sure the bracket comes across the post square. And repeat these steps the rest of the way around the porch.
When you're doing these brackets on the center post, try and get the brackets placement on the same, because if you go a little bit above the line on one side and below the line on the other side, when you stand back and look, your chair is not going to line up. You're going to see one side and the other. So it's real important to make sure these chair rail brackets line up.
Then repeat that process for the remainder of the brackets.
What I do is I'll go ahead and I'll measure it, and I'll write the measurement down on the bracket. Go all the way around, do your measurement, and write your numbers down the bracket, and then I'll yell them out to whoever's cutting, which in this case, 31 3/8. Once it's cut, want to slide one side in first, put your shoulder on the other one, and then just put it in place.
What you're doing with your shoulder is flaring that center 3x2 out a little bit, allowing the 2x2 to go over the screw heads without damaging the piece. Once you have your 2x2 installed in between the verticals, you need to
press this over. For what reason?
When you put the 2x2 in the chair rail bracket, it does not fit. You need to flex it out with your shoulder to allow it to clear the screws inside the external chair rail bracket. Then let the pressure come back to it. Get everything lined up with the inside. You do not want it hanging over on the inside. You want everything flush. Same thing on the 3x3 side. Then you need to put your screws centered on the width of the bracket, and whatever distance you put it from the 3x2, you need to keep that same distance around the entire porch.
And you got one underneath as well?
You got one on the underneath the bottom, needs to be in the same spot.
When installing these hinges, there's a round part on the hinge. You want to place that hinge. If the door's swinging out, you want this round part on the outside of the door. If the door's swinging in, you want to make sure it's on the inside of the door. So, okay. Your top hinge, you want to place it an inch below those set of screws. You don't want to over tighten it because you can strip the screws, so you want to snug it on there.
Just hold the other ones up.
Right. The other one, you want to set an inch above that screw. Just like that. And the bottom one goes right in between these two set of screws right there. And then just go back and fill in the rest of the holes. That's your hinge placements on the door. Once you got the hinges installed, you want to go ahead and place the door. When you put your first screw on the hinge, you want to have a little gap. I don't know if anybody, you might want to walk around here. There's a little gap in between the hinge and the Z-bar. If you put that tight, what's going to happen is going to bind against this felt and the door is going to stick. So make sure there's like a 3/16 gap on that hinge right there. Once you put the first one, you want to close it and check your reveal out first. If the reveal looks good, you want to match the reveal where the hinge side is. So if you get that close or exactly the same, then you can proceed to put the rest of the screws in. So if you're a little bit low, you can open it, take the screw out, and put a tap on a different hole and lower it or raise it up accordingly. And once you get it right, then you want to go ahead and continue and fasten the rest of the hinges.
Keeping that same distance from the hinge to the Z-bar. Keep that gap consistent.
Once you get that done, now you want to go ahead and align your Z-bar to get the reveal the same all the way around. So I'm gonna start off on the hinge side and put my 2 tech on the corners. And then when you do this side, you want to raise it up and get the same reveal all the way across. Once you get that top one, you want to make sure you get these 45s pretty tight. Once you get these 2 corners up, then you want to get your reveal right going down. And like we said earlier, you want to come 24 inches from the top and 24 inches from the bottom, and that's where you're going to have text. Once you have the inside done, then you want to go on the outside and just repeat the steps. And the same thing, 24 from the top and 24 from the bottom. And then about 1 inch from the bottom. That pretty much completes your Z-bar right there. Once you get that done, you want to measure for your 2x2. And don't do that. Cut it and then just place it on top. Push it down. And then just, you're going to use this as your guide, the door frame. So just go off from that. And the same thing on the opposite side.
Using the inside of this door allows you to just avoid a whole step of bringing out your tape measure. It's the same spot both inside and out. They give you the same distance of the screws.
Once you have that done, there are times that your door has tension. Like when you go to close it, it's not smooth like that. It binds and kind of stops. These hinges need to be sprung out, and we're going to show you how you want to do that. You just want to get a screwdriver, open the door, stick it behind the hinge, and just a little bit, just spring it out like that a little bit. That's all they need. I don't know if you want to come over here or just stick it in between the hinge and round part and just give it a little. And that'll spring the door to where it'll close smoothly all the way. Once you get that done, now you want to drill your holes out for your door handle, which that's going to be 40 inches from the bottom of the door to your top hole. So you want to come 40 and 4 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's 40 and 4. On both sides, inside and out. Once you get that done,
you're going to drill that out with a 5/16 drill bit.
There's a template that these box bring with 3 holes. You want to set your 40-inch mark on the top hole and the other 2 holes underneath of that.
There's a template there. It
He's
does not have the plastic
He's got it there,
template.
Dan.
It should have a piece of paper in there that will give you the layout.
Yeah, if you don't have this, you have this piece of paper. It's basically the same thing. Your 3 holes, but you want your 40-inch mark on the center of that top hole. And then once you got that top mark, you set this on there, and you trace with a pencil the center of the holes on both sides. So by the time it's done, you're gonna have 3 lines going across the vertical line. Once you get that done, you want to get a 5/16 drill bit and drill one side. Do not try and go through one side and through the other side, because you won't get it straight. So go through one side and then come through the other side and do that. Once you come through the opposite side, go all the way through to make sure it's straight. Once you get that done, you want to get your door handle, and you want to make sure you get the locking part on the inside. So you want to take the rod, insert it on that part, put it on, and then make sure you match this side with the inside, because you don't want to put it like that. It goes up like this. So once you got that on, you go ahead and put the screws on there.
You must do this with a screwdriver and not a drill. The screws are too soft, they will snap off with the drill.
And on these in-swing door kits, you don't want to over-tighten it, because then they'll stick and they won't work right. You don't want it tight, but you don't want it loose. That's what you want right there. If you open it and it sticks, that means you got it too tight and you have to adjust it accordingly so you get it working right. Once that's done, then you want to get the door catch and set it, hold it up against the door and hold the center of the door handle. And once you have it center, you want to have a 5/32 drill bit ready when you're doing this, and stick the drill bit in there just to make 2 marks. Once you have your marks, you're going to set this down and go ahead and drill your 2 holes. You don't want to go all the way through. Just want to go through the first layer of the 3x2. Once you get that done, you want to use 2 framing screws and go ahead and put it on. Once again, you don't want to over tighten this, because you will strip the screws. Alright, once that's installed, you want to check. Sometimes they need adjustment, and you have to put some shims behind it to kind of bring it out because it's too tight, which in this case it's working right. But you know, if you need to adjust it, you can adjust it on site. Once you get that working right, the next part is going to be your hydraulic door closer. The first part you want to put on is the back, this plastic piece that goes right there. What you want to do is you want to center it on this bar. Once you center it, you want to drop it down about 1/4 inch, 3/16 1/4 inch, and I'll explain that once I put the hydraulic closer on there.
You can use the hide the lines on the door through the center of the anchoring bracket. That'll allow you to just quickly drop it down.
Make sure you put a screw in every place that calls for one. Once you get that done, you want to get your hydraulic closer and put the locking piece. Make sure you put the locking piece on there the right way with the tab, this tab facing in like that. And then you got two pins, a wider one and a thinner one. The wider one goes in the back. So you want to put that in place. Take your front bracket. The reason why I dropped this down is because you want to have a drop on this hydraulic closer so it won't hold water on there. If you do it level, it'll hold water and it'll rust. And before you put the first screw on there, you want to put tension on this. So pull it out a little bit. All you need is about 1/4 inch. And put your first tack on there. And then put two more. One on the end. And then one in the middle. So you want to make sure you have 3. If you don't do 3, the center point right here is the weakest point, and this bracket will actually bend and break. So if the homeowner forgets to lock the door and the wind gets it and opens it up, the first piece that breaks is that bracket right there. So by putting that third screw on there, we're strengthening that piece on that bracket. Once you have that installed, you're ready to adjust the hydraulic closer, which there's a screw on the end of the closer that if you tighten it up, it's going to slow the door down. If you loosen it up, it's going to close a lot faster. When you adjust it, what you want is to swing once, to bounce once, and then close. Loosen up a little bit. That's basically what you want right there. To bounce once and then close. Once you get that done, your next step is going to be your buck sweep. On the in-swing door, you have to cut your buck sweep down because it's too long. So go ahead and measure it, put a pencil mark and cut it. Once you get done, you want to take your snips and pinch the ends so that the rubber sweep doesn't slide out. Because if you don't do that, these things slide out pretty easy. So you want to pinch both sides. Once you have that done, you set it on here, making sure you have it down, and start with this. Start with the hinge side, and then come back and do the opposite side. And then put one in the middle. And then once that's done, you check for gaps, and then you double check the door, make sure it still closes the same and works right. And that's your door installation right there.
Once the door is done, you have all your screws in your chair rail, your screen rail. You're going to walk around, pick everything up again, make sure everything's cleaned up. Then you're going to proceed to wipe down and touch-up paint. Screws, a lot of times when you're putting the screws in, they wears a lot of the paint off of the corners. If they're really bad, you need to touch them up. There are a lot of times they are good enough to let them go. You need to wipe down all pencil marks. We want to use our cleaner that we provide. We don't want to use anything else. It could take the paint off if it's too strong of a chemical. Once that's done, you're ready to start screening. Again, when you screen, you want to cut 3 inches wider than your opening on each side. That allows you for excess screen to adjust pulling it tight one way or another, but we do not want to get too much waste. So 3 inches longer than the opening itself. And that concludes the demonstration for the stick-built porches with an in-swing door, chair rail, and screen rail. Pre-built installation instructions. First, give a little brief overview of what the pre-built panels are and what they help us do. Pre-built panels allow us to streamline stuff from measuring it to the shop for production and installation. When it comes to screen porches, the hold up with how long it takes to install is when you get to the field. If you have to custom cut every single piece, it takes a lot longer to do it in the field than it can when you're set up in like an assembly line type thing as the shop is. So pre-built panels are pre-measured, everything is pre-cut. If everything's done correctly, you do not even have to get the saw out of the truck for the simplest things. The corner posts, they're all pre-cut to length. The receivers at the house wall are pre-cut. The panels are all measured. The leveling with the header and everything I do when I go to measure, or whoever goes to measure the job should be doing. There are instances where you do need a pump jack and a 2x4 or 2x6 to raise the header up to allow you to slide your 3x3s in or in your pre-built panel. But once your 3x3s are set, the panel should fit without needing a jack any longer. I have a way of measuring the header width, and when I measure the header on page 2 of your work order, there's a layout. On the exterior of the layout, there's measurements, 3 measurements: 68 and 7/8, 138 across the front, 67 and 5/8. That is the distance from the wall to the inside of the casting where it needs to be set. When you have siding, we're measuring from the bump out on the siding. We're not measuring to the J channel across the top or the bottom. It's to the siding itself.
The high point.
The high point on the siding. There is a notch that we will be doing in order to allow our receiver to go back tight to the siding. We'll go over that in the demonstration, where that placement is. So the first steps in the pre-built, when you're leaving the shop, you need to follow the same as the stick built. You need to read your work order, understand your layout, make sure you have all the correct amount of panels. The panels are labeled on the work order. As you can see, it says P1, P2, 3, and so on. That tells us how many panels there are. This is a top view layout of how the panels should be snapping together, which type of extrusion is used at what panel. Again, don't be afraid to take extra. We have talked about making like a little kit that everybody can take with them. Have like an extra self-mating, extra 1x2, 2x2. That way there, in case something is built wrong, we can repair it in the field. We do not have to come back to the shop. So again, read your work order, understand that you have all your panels, understand that if you need extra, you need to take extra. There should be a picture on the 3rd page that will allow you to see the porch. It's not in this one. That'll give you an idea on the height, what height ladders you need. Typically everything can be done off of a 4- and 6-foot ladder for these porches. The previous pages, or the pages following the top view layout, are the individual panels. All the measurements that the panel should be, the material that should be used, and the panel number and each page will have different measurements for each panel, following that right on around. One of the standards for pre-built panels is all the measurements are from the inside of the porch, and they always start from left and go around the porch to the right. That keeps everything consistent. And your screen is always on the outside unless it's noted. What this allows us to do is higher elevation decks on the second, third floors. We can still install the panels with the screen to the outside because we need to be on the same side as the fasteners. So then we get to the job site, we locate our power source, get our batteries charging, go ahead and lay out your panels. Once you get your panels staged, go ahead and set your corner post.
Once you set your corner post, whether it's a 2-sider or 3-sider, which in this case it's a 3-sider, you want to go ahead and do your chalk lines after you set both posts. So do all 3 chalk lines. After you set your chalk lines, you want to go ahead and grab your first panel, which is panel number 1. Once both posts are set, you want to go ahead and set your receiver on the back wall, which in this case, you set your post on the inside edge of this coma board, so you want to have the same reveal on the receiver. So you take your receiver, you go ahead and drill 5 equally spaced holes and go ahead and fasten it to the back, which in this application it's on a coma board, and on the other one we'll demonstrate later, it's on siding. So once you have your 2 receivers mounted on the back wall, then you go ahead and do your chalk lines all the way around. Once you have your chalk lines down, you're going to grab your first panel and you're going to pre-drill your holes with a 13/64 drill bit. What you want to do is we're going to come in 3 inches from one side, 3 inches on the other side, and depending on the width of the panel, which in this application we did 1 in the middle. So it's 3, 3, 1 in the middle. If it's over 5 foot, 6 foot, then you want to add another one, but you always want to have equal sides, equal spaces. So go ahead and pre-drill your holes on the top. On your sides, it's going to stay the same. It's going to be 3 and 30. And then you're going to come up 3 inches on top of there, from on top of your chair rail, and 3 inches from the bottom. So you're going to come 3, 3, 30, and 3. Those are the 2 numbers, 3 and 30. Once you pre-drill that, you're going to go ahead and install your first piece. You always want to start with the side that goes inside the receiver. So you want to get panel number 1, bring the top in first, slide the bottom in, and push it all the way up against inside the receiver. Once you get that piece, then you're going to get panel number 2, and you're going to pre-drill the holes on it, and you're going to bring the top in, you're going to snap it together, and then just slide it in, and we'll demonstrate that. We'll demonstrate it later. But once you got it, these panels snap together with the same self-mating. So you have to make sure that you have them both lined up before you go ahead and start snapping them all the way, because then if you got one side on and one side not, you got to take the whole thing back apart again. So just make sure that they're lined up before you snap them in. Once you got that done, once you got both panels in, you want to go ahead and slide all the panels up against the corner post. Once you have them tight up against the corner post, you're going to put your top screws on first. So you go ahead and mount your top screws. Once you have all your top screws in, then you want to go ahead and do your vertical screws up against the post. When you do this, you're going to have to pre-drill with a 5/32 and use 2-inch screws when fastening these panels on these aluminum posts.
Structural posts. On the structural
on the
post.
structural post. Once you got the sidewall done, the front wall is a little bit different because there's no receiver. These posts, when you first set them, they're the same exact size that needs to be to allow 3 panels to go in there. So you're going to take your first panel, after you pre-drill the holes, slide the top in, slide the bottom in. Now, you have to notch the bottom of these panels just like the 1x2 on the stick build to go over the casting, because it's still the same application. So you have to notch to allow to go over the casting, just to kind of keep that in mind. So you're going to set your first panel in. Well, it's not going to be the first, it's going to be your third panel, panel number 3. And then this is your panel number 4 is going to be your door opening. So your door opening is going to have your 2x2 and the top screened already. So you're going to go ahead and slide it in there, snap it in place, which in this one, all you got to do is pre-drill your top holes, because you got self-mating on both sides. You do not want to drill no holes on a self-mating.
The standard door operation is standard door opening is 36.25 wide. If it is an in-swing, it is going to be 81.25. If it is an outswing, it's going to be 80.5 inches high. That 81.25 allows us room to put that Z-bar on there, or the threshold in there, and then set the Z-bar on top of it and still be underneath the header where we need to be.
What are those measurements again?
36.25 wide, 81.25 high for an in-swing, and 80.5 inches high for an outswing door. That's the opening sizes.
Alright. So once you have your door panel snapped in, and you're going to get your panel number 5, once again you're going to pre-drill your holes, you're going to notch it for the casting. This one, you're going to have to slide the top in, snap it to the door panel, and once you have it on there, you want to slide the top in first, bring your bottom in, and these panels, when they put them in the shop, they put an extrusion on the bottom to keep it from kind of caving in. If you take that extrusion out, it's going to let you flex in, so you can go over this notch on this casting. Because if not, you have to beat it in there. Sometimes it will bend a little bit, but with the door application, you can go ahead and flex it in and put it in there, and then go ahead and do the same thing. Once you have it all in there, you want to fasten your top, your sides, and then do your bottom, which in this case, you're going to have your chalk line, so just use your chalk line as a guide when you fasten your bottom screws, which is going to be the same thing, 3, 3, and 7.
And then that takes care of the front wall. So now we have our third wall, which what we need to do is we need to repeat the process for the third wall, the same as what we did on the first wall. The only thing different over here is now we have siding. So we need to cut our notch out, allow our receiver to go back tight to the house wall. This is all done before we start setting the panels. Once we have the J-channel notched and we have our extrusion, we're going to put foam tape on the back of it to allow for the siding to be sealed properly. One thing that we need to do is we need to hold the extrusion up here tight to the top after we install the foam tape. And we need to have our ladder set up, hold the extrusion tight to the top, and at every lap in the siding, we need to make a relief cut for the foam. We're not going to sit there and measure every single one. We need to just quickly do it and accurately. That allows when we push the piece back to the wall, that allows the foam to bypass the lap in the siding and have a proper seal. Alright. Also at the bottom, when we're doing this, sometimes the siding stops short. And we cannot get the extrusion tight back to the wall. If the gap from the extrusion to the wall is under 1 inch, we're going to use foam to seal that. If it's greater than 1 inch, we'll then use a piece of 1.5 inch receiver or 1 inch receiver, depending on how wide it is. Mount that to the wall or foundation and slide our extrusion inside of that piece. That'll allow us to close the gap. If sometimes we may need to use like a 3x2 or 1x2 if we have the gaps greater than 1.5 inches to close them off. Again, that process is done before we start setting the panels. This process is done with the installation of the house receiver. And so now the wall is prepped. We have came across the front wall. Now we're going to start the side wall. Neat panels 6 and 7, which in this case is just 6. It's a single wall. We're going to span it. So we need to repeat the steps that we followed on the first one for sliding it in, inside the receiver, getting it underneath the header, sliding it in, and screwing it off on all sides. That's pretty much the installation for the actual panels. Now we're ready to set our door. In this case, we have an outswing door. Everybody can see that the hinges, barrel of the hinges are now on the outside. The door has a different type of handle on it than it did with the in-swing handle. It swings out. Keep the 3/16 inch reveal around the perimeter of the door. Once you install the hinges and set the door over the 3/16 inch reveal, you're going to then screw off the exterior of the Z-bar. Once we screw off the exterior of the Z-bar, we're going to drill out our placement, our handle. And what that's going to be is that's actually from the bottom of the door again. We're going to come up 40 inches and 4 lines in. That measurement stays the same for in swings and out swings. 40 inches up from the bottom of the door, 4 lines in from the outside of the door. We're going to drill that out with a 5/16 drill bit. Install the door handle using a handheld screwdriver. Once the door handle is installed, we're going to put the catch on the inside. Properly adjust the distance in and out of the catch so it seals the door evenly around the outside, around the inside to the felt. Sometimes what you'll see is the door may be racked out a little bit, leaning in or out at the top, and you can put your foot against it. Just slightly flex it to allow it to seal properly. Once the handle's installed, everything's screwed off around the perimeter of the Z-bar, then we're going to install our closer. Again, now we have an outswing door, so the closer goes on the inside. Also, we have to install the sweep. We keep the sweep on the outside no matter what, but now the sweep does not need to be cut. It can be left long on one side or the other. And the left long on the side opposite of the hinges allows us to seal it off a little bit more. Once you have your sweep installed, you check the closer, make sure it closes properly with 1 bounce. Not too hard, but you don't want it to close too soft to where if you got a slight breeze, it's not going to close.
If they took that too long to finish that,
If you install the sweep too long on the hinge side of the door, you don't keep it flush, it'll bind up. I don't know if you can really hear it, but it does like a little, it'll catch. It'll prevent the door from opening all the way. It'll bend the sweep at the same time. So you want to keep everything flush with the edge of the door on the hinge side, and have your extra on the handle side. If it's a cut down door, it's a special width door, you do need to cut the sweep. There are instances where we go through and mount the porches in between existing columns. Loading up your truck in the morning and reviewing all your products, you got to make sure that you're the second line of defense when it comes to the screen rails and the doors being damaged. You need to check pickets, keep an eye out for that. Something can happen, a piece of rail can get blown over, then a picket. That all needs to be taken care of before we leave the shop. So the next thing with a pre-built that gets talked about a lot is when do you caulk and when don't you caulk. Okay. Pre-built panels are a little different than stick-built panels because stick-built panels are custom cut to the 1/16 of an inch on site. Pre-built panels have an allowance of an 1/8 inch to 3/16 inch in height. So therefore what you'll see is you'll see a gap when everything's installed tight to the header. You'll see a gap underneath of the floor. We need to make sure not to over tighten them screws down on the floor, and that gap will allow water to run out. If we have control of the porch, if we're building the porch using our own structural post, and we can adjust the width of the porches, so therefore we should not have gaps greater than a 1/16 of an inch. When we have the extrusion at the house wall, that allows us to pull it tight to the corner post and to the header.
Receiver.
If we're mounting in between existing columns, there is an 1/8 of an inch allowed for width at each of the top, the chair rail or screen rail, and at the bottom. So you will have a gap. If you're mounting to existing columns, they need to be caulked off on the inside of the porch every time. If there is a case where you're doing a stick-built porch, or where you're doing a pre-built porch and we have control of it, and we're using our own 3x3s, and a customer would like the header caulked because there is a little wave in the header and you can see slight gaps, we will caulk that. We're not going to fight that. It's easier for us just to take a few extra minutes to do that than have an unsatisfied customer. Codes and regulations. If the porch deck is more than 30 inches from grade, rail must be added. What this does, this prevents this allows us to have a backup for fall protection. When we have a chair rail, there's nothing underneath of it, it's just screen, there's no pickets. Number 2, outswing doors must have a 3x3 landing. They need to have a landing that somebody can walk up to, grab the door, or swing the door open without having to step down off the steps and reach up. If it does not have an outswing door, it would have to be if it does not have a 3x3 landing, it would need to be an in-swing door. Commercial jobs and the city limits of Lewis, Delaware require 42-inch tall rail. Standard rail is 36 inches high from the floor to the top rail, and commercial rail would be adjusted an additional 6 inches higher. Alright, now we're going to get into the demonstration of the installation of a pre-built screen porch. You've already followed your steps for leaving the shop. You've read your work order, you understand your work order, counted your pieces. You're now at the job site, you've located your power source, you're plugged in. Again, the first step you're going to do is install your corner post. Install your corner post to the measurement on the outside of the layout. That'll tell you the distance from the house wall, what you're mounting to the inside of the post. Set the casting on the outside of that. Again, cut it to, well, everything's pre-cut, so you should set your casting, slide your post in, slide your bottom casting on, repeat the steps for both sides, level your post up. The front wall will be a measurement in between posts. You level one corner post, then you pull a measurement, the same measurement that you have top and bottom. It's reflected on the work order. And do not forget to install your wind lift screws. One little trick that we learned on these is that if you install your wind lift screws on the side that has the receiver, it allows you to slide into the receiver, come in around the screws, and back tight. Currently, the standard is that we're using 1-inch receiver on the house walls. And what I do is whatever the width is, I deduct a 1/2 inch to allow us a 1/2 inch of play. If the wall is out of level, we're using an 1.5 inch receiver. My vote is that once the 1 inch is done, once the stock for the 1 inch receiver is done, we're going to switch over to 1.5 inch receiver. I'll deduct 3/4 of an inch, and that'll prevent a lot of the issues that, this is slight little issues, and allow us to perfect just a little bit more, make it go a little bit smoother. So now we have our post installed. We have our castings teched off for the wind lift screws. We're going to pre-drill our house receiver. Again, this one here, just throw 5 screws in it. They don't need to be measured out precisely. They're hidden. So just keep everything under 30-inch spacing. Over here is the big thing that everybody needs to actually take a look at. Is the way that we notched out this J channel at the top and at the bottom to allow the extrusion to go back tight to the house wall. Once you have it notched out for the width of the extrusion, everything will be fit in there nice and snug. You're going to then put foam tape on the back of it. And keep in mind that gap down here at the bottom underneath it here, if it's under 1 inch space, we're going to use foam to seal it off. As you guys can see, I used a double layer of foam on there. If it's over 1 inch, then you need to use like a piece of receiver like what's sitting down there beside it, and possibly a 1x2 or something like that screwed to the back side of this. Wintertime, like right now, if you're out on a job site and it's 30 degrees outside, this foam tape is not going to stick to this extrusion. What you need to do is you need to take a heat gun and heat up the extrusion, and that'll just allow it to be just a little tacky, the tape on the back of this. At worst case scenario, you hold the foam tape slightly away from the heat gun and actually heat the glue up itself, and then proceed to stick it on. Once you stick it on the extrusion, you're going to then place it in place. You're going to take your knife and you're going to do relief cuts at every single one. What that does is that allows it to seal properly in all the laps of the siding. Once you have the foam tape on, you have everything cut, you need to push it tight to the top, you need to slide it back, put pressure on and in, push the screw through the foam at the top. Let me show you one thing real quick. When you push the screw through the foam and hold everything back and screw it in, it minimizes the chance for the foam ripping out. If you don't hold it tight, the screw's going to bite the foam, it's going to damage it, and this piece of foam needs to be replaced. We do not install foam that looks like that. Okay, everything's up tight. He's got the right piece in the right spot. That's all labeled on the work order, and he's going to push it back tight, push the screw through the foam, and snug it up.
If you let the screw spin on the foam, it'll rip it out.
It'll grab it.
Yeah, without pushing it back. If we just stick the screw in there and turn it, it'll grab it in.
Notching the J channel, what that allows you to do is keep the extrusion going straight up the wall. If you were just to butt to the J channel, it's going to cup it at the top and the bottom. So when you slide your panel in there, you'll see the difference in the reveal. Yeah. That right there was just the receiver. It was pinched against the J channel. It wasn't all the way in properly, and it just popped. That's how much pressure actually had it made. You can see it was actually cupped, and these valves got it back tight. So now we have the receiver. Again, you need to put five screws in it, or however many screws it takes you to get under 30 inches spacing. Installing the porch itself. Again, the panels are labeled on this top view layout, which panel goes where, and the number of the panel corresponds from paperwork to the actual extrusion itself. Panel 1, panel 2, so on around the whole room.
All right, so you're gonna start with panel number 1. And these panels they're labeled on the inside. R1. This one's gonna say R1, and sometimes on the other side they say L, but that's just for when they're building them. But you wanna look for the second number. The first number, R1. That's panel number 1.
Now this wall is 2 panels for demonstration purposes only. We can span, I'm keeping it around 82 inches for single panel widths. And the reason why we're doing that is to allow them to get in the truck and get them all on the truck at one time. So 80 to 82 inches. If there's a porch that has like column to column and I can get away with using an 84, 85 inch panel, I will do that. So the next challenge that we're going to run into will be avoided with having a single panel coming across here. When the wall is longer, we'll be able to avoid this issue here.
You want to take this bottom and kind of pull it out a little bit, but don't let that one come out from the top. That overhang with the gold glue makes it challenging.
And you get everything together and make sure that your self-mating lines up. Make sure that your height is even top to bottom. And snap the pin of the hole.
Would you ever snap it together before you put it in?
It's a matter of preference.
Very good. We were just asking that.
I said, wait, I go to one after one's in there? Or
Depends on the overhang of the OMA. Depends on the.
Everything's different.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on like, you're talking about snapping together and then put them in there? Is that what?
I was wondering.
Yeah, see, sometimes like, if these panels, this is a small one here, but if you got a 12, 16-foot wall and you got 4 panels, 4 foot wide, you snap the whole wall together and try and put it up on there and the wind's blowing, you're gonna struggle. It's not, on your average 12-foot wall, it's not this bad, but this is short wall, but the steps are almost the same.
It binds more on the short wall. Like
Yeah,
That's
because
why
it's so
that
short.
single panel, you wouldn't have all that issue. You'll see the other side goes a lot smoother.
this. Doing it one at a time enables a single person to install a porch much easier.
So then you're going to push it back, come around your wind lift screws. That's why I was saying if you install them on this side, it's easier than the front wall.
Yeah.
We need to have the notch on the bottom of the 1x2, the same as we have on the previous porches.
Is there enough to relieve in the receiver to get around any of this?
Right now, I only have 1-inch receiver, so I have a 1/2 inch. And when I actually put the extrusion on there, it's like 7/16 of an inch gap. And that measurement's at the top also, so now down here at the bottom, we have approximately a 1/4 inch gap. Everything's pushed back tight at the bottom, so now we need to try to bow the middle out and bring it around the casting. You definitely use a mallet to do that. And what you'll see happen is it'll hit that casting and it'll bend that, it'll fold that piece of metal back. So if you take it and tap it back out against it, it's going to reverse it. It's going to open it back up to where it needs to be. Switching out all the receiver at the house wall, allowing a 3/4 inch gap is going to allow us to pull back and come over that casting with ease and less damage to the panels themselves.
Once you have it in place, once again, you want to bring the panel tight.
And you already have your chalk line snap. Keep everything flush to the outside of the post. If you're mounting it to the outside, if you need to pull it to the inside or whatever, keep your reveal the same across. Slide it tight to the post and then to the header first. Screw the header off all the way and then proceed to screw down the post itself. One thing that we didn't discuss is all the holes need to be drilled ahead of time. Before you get the panels up here, it's easier. You can flip them around, do the layout right in front of you instead of up and down a ladder with two different drills. When you get to a panel that has everybody's just going to have to come in here and look. You have to offset the screw on the where the screen rail is. You do not want to drill that hole in the center. You drill that hole in the center, your screw's going to be on a severe angle. You're going to rub the picket with your drill.
Once again, pre-drill the holes with a 5/32. After you have your top screws in, then go ahead and do your bottom, making sure that it's flush with the.
One thing for this is for training purposes. These posts do have spline grooves on them. When you're doing a pre-built porch, they will be smooth posts, so you won't have that little bump in transition there. Just keep everything flush to the outside. And when you get down to where your screen rail is, it still is on an angle. So you're going to have to either put your mark on the inside if you're doing it by yourself, that right there you know the distance. Or if you have somebody else to help you, hold it in slightly. Over there when the screw comes tight, it pulls it out flush. Once you have your top screwed off and your side screwed off, you need to push the rail into your chalk line and then drill the holes where they need to be, missing, again, mortar joints, gaps in the deck boards, whatever you need to do. Keep everything symmetrical, same distances. If you're going to put a hole in the first picket spacing, put it in the first one on both sides. If you need to come into the second one, put it on the second. Right here, if you come one side or the other, and then at the house wall, you can keep that one in the second spacing, keep this one in the second spacing. Everything needs to look symmetrical, because that's what people see is the actual visual of it. They're not pulling a tape measure and stuff.
Now
it's all about what looks good.
On the header, are we always going to the outside to maximize it, or are we splitting the difference side to side?
It's always going, if you have a coil wrapped header, you're going to keep approximately a 1/4 of an inch reveal around the whole porch. If you're doing a coma wrapped header, everything's set up to be outside the header, to the exterior.
Not centered.
If it is not, it will be noted. If it is not, you will see the measurements reflected. And what I'm doing to help now is I ran into 3 porches this week and last week that the one wall has to come in 2 inches. Like you have like a 2-inch gap.
Right.
The other 2 walls are flush, but I made a mark on that side of the work order that tells them to see that this is the side that needs to know that.
Okay.
So this here is what you're going to repeat right around the whole entire porch. Okay, I mean the front wall, it's got 3 panels, so say this front wall is 20, 30, 40 foot long. Putting them pieces in individually will prevent you from having to pick that whole wall up.
Yeah, it's only going to be the last panel that's going to bind like was demonstrated. The rest of them will slide in easy.
Slide in easy. And what happens is the longer your wall is, the more you can bow out the center to allow it to go around the screws or whatever you need to do. And when you have a door opening, of course the door is not installed, so you can squeeze the door opening down. There'll be a piece of extrusion going across the bottom to maintain the 36 1/4 inch gap. You can just unscrew that, and that allows you to bring your bottom in again. And we'll just demonstrate one more time on this wall here how to install the porch. Pre-drill your measurements on your side and your top. One more thing that we did talk about is no screws go into the receiver to the piece of extrusion going into the receiver unless they're needed. Originally we were installing 1-inch receiver with 1x2, and then of course 1x2 does have flex. I switched everything to 2x2. It's a lot more has a lot more strength to it and doesn't bow it quite as much. So we got everything pre-drilled across the top and pre-drilled down the sides. The bottom is still not pre-drilled yet. Everybody can see that that's what I'm talking about flaring out that bottom. So having a little bit more room in the receiver will prevent a lot of this stuff from happening. Get it in, slot it around your casting. Tight to the header, tight to the post, and repeat the steps around the whole thing. Drill out your bottom where needed. Missing the gaps in the deck boards. Again, one thing you need to take note of is all the screws going into the headers, house walls, and floors and decks need 1 inch of grab into the wood. Grabbing into a deck board is not sufficient to hold the panels. We used to use 2-inch screws, so now we need to use 3. For an outswing door, it has a different handle on it, which requires a different catch. Again, your closer is going to be on the inside of the porch. It does not have a threshold on these porches.
Closer is always on the opposite side of the hinges.
Closer is always on the opposite side of the hinges, or opposite of which direction the door swings. We're going to go ahead and demonstrate how to screen. Screen this one panel over here. He went ahead and pulled a measurement, and he made it 3 inches bigger than the actual opening. 6 inches bigger. 3 inches bigger on each side. So for example, here we have 45-inch panel, or 45-inch opening. So we're just going to cut the screen 51 inches wide. We said it before, but when you screen, all the lines need to go the same way. We always use this red line at the top, against our top. If you're going to run it down the side, you need to keep all of them going down the sides. The holes are not square in our standard screen. They're 18 holes by 14 holes in a square inch. When you're cutting, cut everything down the side. Try to stay within the line. If you bump off 2 or 3 lines, you're all right. If you go over that, you need to get back into the same line. What that allows you to do is allows you to keep everything going down straight and everything going across straight. First thing you're going to do, always find me a straight edge. Now this line here is the only thing that's visible the whole way down. A lot of times it'll be a 3x2, so you can go to the outside edge of it. So what you need to do is keep everything even across the top and down the side. You're going to space out your fingers and hold the screen in place, letting the rest straight. The spline has a flat side and a round side. The round side stays to the outside, and the way that the extrusion is designed, it has a lip that takes the spline downward towards the opening and allows it to go in and roll back and lock. So push it in with your finger, roll it in slightly, about an inch or 2, depending on the weather. Then what you need to do is you need to keep that same distance, whatever you held across there. Here we go. Keep the same distance across the panel. That way there, it runs, the screen lines run straight. Keep everything the same. Just give it like a little tug on your spline. And just roll it in all the way across the top of the panel.
Trick is to keep the screen tight and the spline tight simultaneously with one hand.
How tight do you want to keep the spline? This for shrinkage and that sort of thing.
It's all about,
The weather will let you feel it out.
you want it as loose as possible without, you know, challenging the rolling process.
So don't push it straight in without stretching, that'd be fine.
Yeah. You always have to have,
It's gonna allow it to be a little bit softer.
if you stretch it too far, 3 years down the road, it'll fall out.
It'll come right back.
Start to just peel right out. Repeat that process the whole way across. Cut the notch just inside the extrusion where the spline groove is, and then roll the rest of it in with your knife or push it in with the back of your. You're going to be doing a relief cut just inside of the vertical spline groove, even with the bottom of your 1x2 across your header and going upward. That allows the pretty much like two separate screens. It separates each other from themselves. Again, right in there, even with the bottom of this, inside that groove, and then go up. Alright, now we're going to keep everything in line going down the side. I always like to line everything up and then roll it a little bit for a starter, and then push the screen in, push the spline in, favoring it towards the opening because that's which way it needs to go in to set. Roll it a little bit with your knife, get the first like inch started, line it up, going down, keeping everything in line, and then just roll it downward. And keep repeating the process all the way down the panel. Repeat the process for the other side. Make sure that it does get set in at the top. On this side, you need to slightly pull it to the left to make sure the screen's tight. And make sure that you work any bubble out at each spot where the spline's rolling in. On the left side, you never want to go farther than your spline is on your opposite. Let's repeat that all the way to the bottom. Same spot, you cut it off at the top, you need to cut this one off at the bottom. Pretty much where you started it at. You need to just mimic it at the bottom. And then roll it in with your knife. Again, pull this side tight slightly. Roll it right on down. Once you have both sides done, go ahead and cut your relief cut just like at the top, except you need to cut it downward.
Never take your knife blade towards the center of the panel.
Do your top and then do your sides down. It's got the screen fairly tight. Then what you need to do is you need to pull the bottom down a little bit, making sure not to pull it side to side, and then just slightly roll your knife in there to get a little starting groove. And then again put your spline in, and it needs to come up towards the opening in this spot. repeat the process across, pulling it down slightly, rolling it in. Keep doing that all the way across. When you first start off, you probably like 4, 5, 6 inches at a time. And then once you get like certain angles, you can hold your knife in certain tensions. You can start rolling it out farther. Cut the knife inside the 1x2, or cut the spline that were there. It'll sit in there tightly. Now your panel's done. It's fairly tight. It's almost there. You're going to cut a relief cut for your center 2x2. There's a seam where the 2x2 meets the 1x2. Cut down that about halfway and then turn your knife. And then cut up about halfway to connect them two lines. Same thing on this side. Having control of your knife at all times is the most important thing. Now you need to cut a relief cut down the center of the 2x2. Don't run your knife down it because you'll scar it. And then repeat the step that you did for the bottom and the middle. Same thing for the bottom of it. This is the one where you gotta slightly pull up on it. The gravity kind of holds the top one in place. You need to make sure that it doesn't bow down. You continue to hold it in a straight line across there. Now what you need to do is fold the screen back, the excess screen back towards the spline over top of it, and cut the back side of it right on down, staying tight to the outside of it. Just continue to trim that the whole entire way. You want to fold the screen back to where you can see the spline exposed and cut down it this way. Because what happens is you'll cut down it and all of a sudden you'll put a little bit too much, and you can cut the screen, or you can take a chunk of the spline out.
Not only that, the back side of that screen wrapped around is a very important part of locking that screen in and keeping it staying there, because that spline in contact with that screen, if you cut it, if you run your knife back in to where you're hitting, if you run your knife back in where you're making contact with the back side of the spline groove, you are removing a very critical piece of, I mean, it might be just 1 or 2 strands that allows
it's usually one row of squares.
What happens over time is the screen will work its way out. It's not being gripped by the spline properly. So it's very critical that when you're trimming screen, your blade is touching rubber spline.
You just continue to trim it the rest of the way down.
Your knife is still facing the spline when he's doing that, right? You're just not pushing so hard.
Yeah, the blade is touching the rubber part. You don't want the blade ever to be touching the aluminum